This is a mistake. There's no way a fleet of human ships just stumbled upon a galactic empire. Captain Kira Price leaned back in her chair, squinting at the holographic display flickering in front of her. The transmission was clear, the message delivered with an unmistakable authority. Yet something about it didn't sit right. It had been a routine deep space survey. A few exploratory probes, a handful of new discoveries, nothing to get worked up over. But this was something entirely different. Her fingers danced across the console, zooming in on the data. A signal had emerged from deep within an uncharted sector. Not just a simple transmission. It was a full-spectrum, heavily encrypted message, originating from an alien species far beyond the human frontier. She tapped the comms console, and the stern face of Admiral Holt appeared. "Captain, are you sure about this?" His voice was thick with skepticism. It's absurd. The data checks out, but this doesn't add up." "I know, sir," Kira replied, not missing a beat. "But the encryption is real, and I'm not going to ignore it. We might have just found something big, really big." The Admiral hesitated for a moment, and Kira could practically hear the wheels turning in his head. The truth was, humanity had been thriving, expanding into the stars, claiming new worlds, and conquering challenges that would have crippled other civilizations. But this felt different. If the message was legitimate, they had just crossed paths with something ancient and dangerous. Holt finally spoke. "You're authorized to proceed, but you'll need backup. I'm sending the Artemis and the Titan your way. There's no way you're handling this alone." Kira looked out the viewport, watching the distant stars drift by as her ship, the Relentless, pushed deeper into uncharted space. The fleet would rendezvous within a few hours, but there was something in her gut, an uneasy feeling she couldn't shake. This wasn't just an alien species. The message felt purposeful, deliberate, like it had been waiting for someone to hear it. The transmission continued, its message growing bolder as it repeated. "To the species of Earth, we, the Galactic Empire, command your immediate submission. You will comply with our authority, or you will be eradicated. Respond or be destroyed." Kira couldn't help herself. A bitter laugh escaped her lips, one that echoed through the quiet cockpit of the Relentless. "Eradicated? They're demanding submission from us." She shook her head, feeling an odd sense of amusement at the absurdity of it all. She was no stranger to intergalactic politics, but something about this struck her as laughable. The arrogance, the absolute confidence in their superiority. It was almost comical. Her thoughts were interrupted by a blaring alarm. A series of red lights flashed on the console, followed by a sharp tone. The sensors were picking up something. Ships. Many ships. All closing in on their position. Her heart skipped a beat. The Empire had found them. Kira's hands moved with practiced precision, activating the ship's communication systems. "This is Captain Kira Price of the Relentless. We've received your message. And frankly, we think you're mistaken. We're not in the business of submitting to anyone." She paused for a moment, watching the stars beyond the viewport. "We don't take orders from anyone. We'll respond on our terms." The response came instantly, as if the Empire had been waiting for this very moment. A deep, rumbling voice boomed from the comms, dripping with disdain. "You dare defy the Galactic Empire? You are insignificant. We are the rulers of the stars. You will bow before us, or your species will be wiped from existence." Kira's lips curled into a grin. Her crew was listening in, their faces illuminated by the comms feed as they stood in rapt attention. She knew what they were thinking, what they all were thinking. The human spirit was not one to bow, not to any alien, not to any empire. And this was an empire that had just made the gravest of mistakes. "Not going to happen," Kira said, her voice steady, laced with humor. "You've got one shot to reconsider." The aliens on the other end were silent for a moment, no doubt processing the audacity of her response. But Kira wasn't done. She leaned forward, eyes narrowing with a fire she knew would be felt across the galaxy. "We'll see how long it takes for you to regret threatening humanity." The Empire had made its move. Now, Humanity would make theirs. And for once, the humans had the upper hand. The transmission cut off abruptly. A moment later, the comms buzzed again, this time with a new, unexpected message. Kira's eyes widened as she read it. Prepare to be eradicated. She chuckled, shaking her head. If they thought that threat would intimidate them, they were about to find out just how wrong they were. And this time, it wasn't just humanity that would laugh in their faces. You can't seriously believe this is going to work. The voice came through the comms with an air of disbelief that matched the sheer absurdity of the situation. Captain Kira Price didn't respond immediately. Instead, she stared at the star map blinking in front of her, detailing the vast fleet of alien warships now closing in on the Relentless. The Galactic Empire's armada was far larger than anything humanity had ever faced, and yet there was no panic, no fear. Only the calm, calculating confidence of a species that had, for the first time, underestimated humanity. The Empire's ships were massive, cruisers that dwarfed the Relentless by a factor of 10. Their armor was thick, their weapons lethal, and their fleet numbers were in the hundreds. This wasn't just a skirmish, this was a war. But Kira had one advantage the Empire hadn't accounted for: humanity's unshakable defiance. Captain, Lieutenant Callum's voice broke through her thoughts. We've been trying to establish communications with the Empire for the last 10 minutes, but they're not responding. They're just closing in. Kira swiveled in her chair, locking eyes with Callum. The lieutenant was a seasoned officer, but there was a tension in his gaze that mirrored everyone else's on board. They had no idea what kind of threat they were dealing with. The Empire was unlike any civilization they'd encountered. And still, the humans stood firm. Let them come, Kira said, her voice unwavering. It'll be their mistake. As the seconds ticked down, the Empire's ships approached with terrifying precision. It was only a matter of time before they opened fire. Kira's hand hovered over the comms, ready to send a final message before the battle began. But before she could make a move, an unexpected transmission flooded their channels. It was the voice of Emperor Oros, deep and commanding, filled with the weight of centuries of power. Human vessels, he began, each word dripped with disdain. You have been warned. We do not negotiate with primitive species. Surrender now, or you will be eradicated. Kira's lips twitched into a smile. She wasn't sure whether it was the absurdity of the threat or the sheer arrogance of the message that struck her most. Either way, she wasn't about to bow to this alien emperor. Not now, not ever. We don't respond well to threats, she replied calmly. But we're more than happy to meet you halfway. With a flick of her wrist, the Relentless S weapon systems activated. The ship wasn't equipped with the massive firepower the Empire had, but humanity's strength lay in something far more unpredictable: their ingenuity and adaptability. Kira nodded toward her chief tactical officer, Narration. Let's show them what happens when they underestimate us. Mira grinned, her fingers moving swiftly over the controls. The ship's engines roared to life, executing an evasive maneuver that sent the Relentless darting in unpredictable directions, throwing off the Empire's targeting systems. The alien fleet, accustomed to sweeping through enemies with sheer firepower, struggled to track the small human ship. The first volley of shots from the Empire missed by a mile. Kira leaned back, watching the results. Not bad for a bunch of primitive species. The Empire, now clearly agitated, responded with a second barrage of fire, larger, more concentrated. The Relentless dodged again, executing a rapid roll and diving just under the Empire's line of fire. I'll take it from here, Kira said, stepping toward the weapons console herself. The challenge was clear. The Empire thought their firepower alone would bring an end to this confrontation, but they weren't counting on a human willingness to fight dirty. She punched in a series of commands. The Relentless S weapon systems, designed to fire in quick, unpredictable bursts, unleashed a counterattack. A volley of kinetic rounds slammed into one of the Empire's smaller cruisers, cracking its shields and sending a shockwave of disorientation through the enemy ranks. For a moment, there was silence. The Empire's ships hesitated, clearly caught off guard by the human tactic. It wasn't a direct assault, it was harassment. And it was working. But the Empire was nothing if not relentless. Emperor Oros's voice boomed again, now tinged with barely contained fury. You dare mock the might of the Galactic Empire? You will pay for your insolence. Kira didn't flinch. She wasn't done yet. We're just getting started. The Relentless swerved again, this time deploying its decoy drones, small, agile ships designed to confuse enemy targeting systems. They spread out like a swarm, making it nearly impossible for the Empire's fleet to target the real ship. The Empire fired once more, but their shots passed through empty space, unable to land a hit. The human ship darted around the battlefield, making a mockery of their precision. Kira's voice was steady as she watched the chaos unfold on the screens before her. Tell me again how we're supposed to be the primitive ones. A long moment of silence passed, as if the Empire's commanders were regrouping, trying to figure out what had just happened. Their strategy was collapsing. The human tactics, which seemed so basic on paper, were proving impossible to counter. The Empire's arrogance was their fatal flaw. They had assumed that sheer power would win the day, but they hadn't accounted for the stubbornness of a species that had spent centuries overcoming the odds. Kira had no illusions. They were still outmatched. But they weren't outclassed. Not by a long shot. A voice came through the comms again, more measured this time. Cease fire, human vessel. You've caused enough damage. We will consider your surrender. Kira's laugh interrupted him, cold and biting. Surrender? We're not the ones who need to surrender, Emperor. You're about to learn that the hard way. The game was on, and the Empire's empire had just begun to crumble at the hands of humans who weren't afraid to laugh in the face of certain destruction. They thought we were a joke. Let's show them how dangerous humor can be. The Empire had underestimated humanity, an error that would cost them dearly. The Relentless zipped through space, its engines roaring with fury as it danced around incoming fire from the alien fleet. Kira Price watched the battle unfold on the tactical screen, her crew moving with precision and confidence. The human ship, though smaller and less equipped than the Empire's gargantuan warships, had proven to be an unpredictable nightmare for the Empire. The alien fleet, once so sure of its overwhelming superiority, was beginning to flounder. They had expected an easy victory. What they got instead was a human ship that couldn't be pinned down, a crew that refused to surrender, and an enemy they couldn't quite figure out. They're regrouping, Lieutenant Callum observed, his voice tight with focus. They're trying to lock onto us, but they can't. It's like we've become a ghost in the system. Kira smirked, watching the chaos unfold. The Empire's massive ships, designed for direct confrontation, were no match for the agility and unpredictable tactics of the Relentless. The Empire had no answers to human adaptability. The humans weren't going to win with brute force, but they didn't need to. They just needed to make the Empire question everything. Keep them guessing, Kira ordered, eyes never leaving the screen. Don't let them settle into a pattern. The Relentless darted once again, weaving through the onslaught of enemy fire. The Empire, flustered and unable to adjust, sent out wave after wave of combat drones, massive battleships, and advanced strike fighters. But every time they locked on, the human ship was already elsewhere, dodging their fire and responding with a rapid barrage of kinetic projectiles that sent one of the smaller enemy cruisers spiraling out of control. We're turning the tables on them, Kira muttered under her breath. Her heart raced, but her expression was unreadable. For all the odds stacked against them, the humans were proving one thing the Empire didn't understand, that they had more than just technology on their side. They had cunning, resolve, and a defiance that made them impossible to break. A new message flashed across the comm screen, accompanied by a low, guttural voice. It was Emperor Oros again. Human vessel. The voice crackled. You continue to mock the might of the Galactic Empire. Your tactics are futile, your ship's inferior. Surrender now, and we may spare your pathetic lives. Kira leaned forward, her fingers already moving to reply. She couldn't help but laugh at the message. The nerve of this alien, thinking they could intimidate humanity into submission. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Emperor Oros, she began, her voice crisp and calm. You're welcome to keep trying, but we'll still be here, laughing in your face. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a war to win. Without waiting for a response, she cut the transmission. The Relentless adjusted its course, heading directly toward the heart of the Empire's formation, as if daring them to make their next move. In an instant, Kira's orders were carried out. The Relentless deployed its decoy drones again, this time in a more strategic pattern, creating a confusion that spread across the battlefield. The Empire's forces, divided and overwhelmed, began firing indiscriminately, hitting their own ships in the process. Nice, Narration said, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Their own guns are taking them out. The battle was turning, and not in the Empire's favor. The humans, still maintaining their unpredictable movements and relentless attacks, had turned the tables. Their strange combination of advanced tech and pure human stubbornness was more than a match for the Empire's arrogance. Just as Kira prepared for another aggressive maneuver, a new signal cut through the chaos. This one from the Empire's flagship. This time, there was no bluster, no threats, only a final, desperate plea. Humanity. The voice of Emperor Oros rang out. You have proven yourselves a nuisance. Cease this madness, and we will offer you a place within our empire. Kira paused for a moment, savoring the moment. The great empire, once so full of pride, was now negotiating with the very species they had deemed insignificant. She leaned back in her chair, a wicked grin spreading across her face. A place in their empire? How cute. I think we've made our point, she said coolly. We're not joining anyone. We're here to take our place among the stars. Without hesitation, Kira keyed in the commands to launch a final, devastating strike, one that would send a clear message to the Empire. As the Relentless charged toward its target, she couldn't help but chuckle to herself. The joke was over. The Empire had laughed first, but now humanity was the one getting the last laugh. This isn't a battle anymore. It's a statement. The moment Kira Price pressed the button, the Relentless surged forward, unleashing the full force of humanity's defiance against the Galactic Empire. The remaining Empire fleet, though larger and more advanced, seemed to falter for the first time since the beginning of the battle. The shock waves of their previous losses hadn't yet worn off, and the humans, still unpredictable, still unafraid, were proving to be a far bigger problem than anyone could have predicted. We've got them rattled, Lieutenant Callum said, a note of disbelief in his voice. He was watching their tactical display, which had gone from chaotic to strategic in the blink of an eye. The Empire's lost cohesion. They're splitting into smaller units, trying to regroup. Kira's eyes narrowed as she watched the enemy's hesitation. The battle had reached a turning point, something the Empire had never expected. Every shot from their fleet was a reminder of their arrogance, but each of the humans' counterattacks proved that the Empire's supremacy was anything but guaranteed. What's the next move, Captain? Narration asked, her hands poised over the weapons console. They're still not responding to communications. They're acting like they're on the back foot, but we've got no intel on what they're planning. Kira hesitated for a split second, letting the weight of the moment settle in. This was no longer about survival. It was about showing the Empire that their conquest of the galaxy had met its match. It was about showing the universe that humanity would not kneel. Not to anyone. Focus on the flagship, Kira said, her voice cutting through the tension in the bridge. If we hit their command ship, we'll break their morale for good. It's time we finish this. The Relentless darted back into the fray, weaving through the wreckage of enemy ships, taking advantage of the disarray within the Empire's ranks. But the flagship, a behemoth of alien technology, wasn't going down without a fight. It had more firepower, more advanced shields, and more defenses than anything else in their fleet. But it didn't have humanity's tenacity. Kira's eyes fixed on the glowing silhouette of the Empire's flagship, now surrounded by smaller, desperate vessels trying to protect it. The Empire's reinforcements were coming, but they wouldn't make it in time. The humans had already planned their next move. Get ready, Kira said, her voice tinged with a grim determination. We're going to send them a message they can't ignore. Mira and Callum moved with practiced precision as the Relentless shifted its course. They launched decoys, spread out in a wide, unpredictable formation, and within moments, the Empire's defensive systems began to panic. The flagship fired at the decoys, its massive weapons slicing through empty space, while the real target, the Relentless, slipped through the gaps in the Empire's defenses. The first shot landed squarely on the flagship's shield, sending a ripple of shock waves across the ship's hull. It didn't breach the shields, but it rattled the Empire's forces. They hadn't expected such a direct hit. They hadn't expected this level of aggression from a species they thought was still confined to the fringes of space. Kira leaned in, eyes fixed on the tactical display. They were making progress, but the flagship wasn't going to go down easily. The Empire still had power, and they had their pride. But humanity wasn't interested in fighting a fair battle. They were here to win. Focus fire on their weak points, Kira ordered. Their shields are taking hits, but it's their engines we need to cripple. If we can't stop their movement, we'll never catch them. Myra's fingers flew over the controls, launching another series of targeted blasts. The Relentless S weapons pummeled the Empire's flagship, slowly chipping away at its defenses. Each shot was calculated, each movement precise. There was no room for error now. And then it happened. A massive explosion erupted from the flagship's aft, followed by a massive power surge. The Empire's ship rocked, sending shockwaves through the surrounding fleet. The humans' plan had worked. Kira let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The flagship was still operational, but its engines were damaged, its movement slowed. The Empire's fleet, once so formidable, began to break apart. The remaining ships tried to regroup, but the damage was done. The flagship, the heart of their fleet, was faltering. Kira stood, staring at the damage reports flooding her screen. This is it. The Empire's foundation is cracking. They've lost their nerve. Captain, Callum said, his voice tinged with disbelief. They're retreating. The fleet is falling apart. They're trying to pull back, but they can't escape. The feeling in Kira's chest was a mix of triumph and disbelief. The Galactic Empire, an ancient power that had ruled the stars for millennia, was being forced to retreat by a handful of humans. Her crew had defied everything the Empire had thrown at them, and now the tables had turned. The once dominant force was on the run. We've shaken their foundations, Kira said, more to herself than anyone else. And now we finish what we started. The Relentless moved forward, ready to strike again. The Empire had made the mistake of thinking humanity was a joke. And now, the last laugh was theirs. If they think they can run, they're sorely mistaken. The moment Kira Price saw the Empire's retreat signals flash across her screen, she knew that this battle was far from over. The Empire's flagship, damaged and reeling, was the first to attempt an escape. Its battered engine sputtered, struggling to maintain speed as the rest of the fleet, broken and demoralized, followed suit. But Kira wasn't going to let them slip away. The Relentless surged forward, its engines at full thrust, cutting through the void of space. The Empire had made a fatal mistake. They'd underestimated humanity's resolve. And now the tables had turned. The power of the galaxy's oldest empire was crumbling, and it wasn't going to be easy for them to recover. Don't let them regroup, Kira snapped, her voice hard and focused. We press the advantage now, or we may never get another chance. Her crew responded in perfect synchronicity. Mira Chun manned the weapons console, firing precise volleys of kinetic rounds at the retreating ships. Callum worked the navigation controls, keeping the Relentless one step ahead of the enemy. Every shot, every movement was calculated. Nothing could afford to go wrong now. The Empire's fleet, once so sure of its supremacy, was scrambling. Their ships moved with disarray, attempting to regroup in smaller pockets. But they were no longer coordinated. They were running, and they knew it. Kira's eyes never left the tactical screen as she analyzed the growing chaos. The Empire's communications were flooded with frantic orders and last-ditch attempts to restore order. The great galactic power had devolved into a crumbling, panicked force. And at the heart of it all, their emperor, Emperor Oros, was no longer the calm, commanding figure he had once been. His voice, when it came through the comms, was filled with desperation. "Human vessel, you dare chase us now? Do you not understand what you are doing? We will destroy you, just as we have destroyed all others before you." Kira's lips twisted into a smile as she replied, her voice filled with the confidence that only humanity could have in the face of such a threat. "You were doing just fine when you thought we were an easy target, Oros. But you've made a mistake, and now you're going to pay for it." The Relentless closed the gap, ready to deliver another blow. This time, Kira knew they couldn't afford to hold back. The Empire's retreat was not a surrender. It was their last attempt to salvage whatever they could from this disaster. But it was futile. The flagship, despite its damage, tried to make one final stand. It began charging up its most powerful weapon, an energy beam capable of obliterating anything in its path. But there was one thing the Empire hadn't accounted for: human ingenuity. "We've got their weapon locked," Mira said, voice sharp with determination. "Captain, we can disable it before it fires. We just need a clear shot." Kira nodded, eyes focused on the massive alien ship now attempting to turn its deadly weapon toward them. The Empire's arrogance had led them to believe that their advanced technology could keep them safe, but humanity had learned to fight smart, not hard. They had adapted quickly, and now they were using the Empire's own overconfidence against them. "Take the shot," Kira commanded. Mira pressed a sequence of buttons, and the Relentless unleashed a precisely timed EMP burst directly into the flagship's weapon system. The Empire's weapon flared bright and then sputtered, its power grid destabilizing. A moment later, it exploded in a flash of sparks and energy. The Empire's last hope for retaliation was gone. Kira could feel the shift in the battle. The Empire's flagship was crippled, its weapon offline, and the remaining fleet was in disarray. The humans had achieved what no one, least of all the Empire, thought possible. The comms crackled once again, this time with a broken, defeated voice. You've ruined everything. The Empire will." "We're not done yet," Kira interrupted, cutting the transmission. She turned to her crew. "They want to retreat, but we're not letting them go. Not after everything they've done." With the flagship incapacitated, the remaining Empire ships were now scattered, easy targets for the relentless human pursuit. The Relentless pressed on, every shot delivered with precision. The last remnants of the Empire's fleet began to break apart under the pressure. There would be no escape for them, no way to recover their once dominant position in the galaxy. As the final ship fell, Kira allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction. The Empire had come to Earth expecting an easy victory, expecting humanity to bow. They hadn't counted on the one thing that had always made humans dangerous: their unwillingness to back down. The Empire's arrogance had led them to this. And humanity? Humanity was about to take their place among the stars. They thought we were weak. Now they're about to find out just how wrong they were. The silence was deafening. After hours of relentless pursuit, the once proud Galactic Empire lay shattered before humanity. The last of their ships drifted through the stars, their once imposing fleet reduced to nothing more than broken debris. Kira Price watched it all unfold, her eyes cold and focused. The battle was over, but the war had only just begun. The Relentless hovered in the midst of the wreckage, its hull barely scratched, its weapon systems still primed and ready. The Empire, who had once ruled the galaxy with iron fists and unimaginable power, had been reduced to nothing more than a fading echo in the void. There was no grand surrender, no apology, just the remains of a species that had thought itself invincible. "They're gone," Lieutenant Callum said, his voice barely audible as he scanned the communications feed. "The last of their ships have been destroyed, or they fled to their last stronghold." Kira didn't reply immediately. She stared out at the darkness beyond the Relentless, her mind processing the scope of the victory. The Empire had underestimated humanity at every turn, and now, in their arrogance, they had paid the price. "They won't escape," she said finally, her voice cold with resolve. "Not from us." The Empire had underestimated more than just humanity's strength. They had underestimated the will of a species that had built its entire existence on survival, on defiance, and on the refusal to yield. Kira knew this wasn't just a victory for her crew. This was a victory for every human who had ever fought against impossible odds, for every person who had ever been told they weren't enough. "We should finish this now," Narration said, her voice cutting through the tense silence. "The Empire might be broken, but their allies still exist. We can't afford to leave them any chance to recover." Kira nodded, her gaze unwavering. "We won't." But as they moved forward, preparing to finish what they'd started, a final transmission came through, its tone far different from the one they had received earlier. It was a simple message, yet its gravity was immense. "Humanity, listen carefully," the voice said, this time unmistakably that of Emperor Oros. "You have bested us, this is true. But you have yet to face the true might of the galaxy." Kira's lips twisted into a smile, though her eyes never left the view of the Empire's remnants. Is this the part where they beg for mercy? But there was no pleading this time, no desperation. The message that followed sent a chill through the bridge. "You have no idea what you've done," Oros continued. "The power you've destroyed is just a fraction of what exists. We are but one part of a much greater whole. You will regret this." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving Kira and her crew in stunned silence. For a brief moment, the weight of Oros's words hung in the air. "Do you think he's bluffing?" Callum asked, breaking the stillness. Kira stood still, her mind calculating the implications of the message. It wasn't a plea for mercy, nor was it a threat she could dismiss. This wasn't the end. This was only the beginning. "They're right about one thing," she said quietly. "We've only taken down one part of their empire. The rest of the galaxy, it's still out there." She turned to her crew, her voice steady, yet filled with an intensity that only came from knowing the true cost of their victory. "We've won the battle, but the war? It's far from over." The Relentless powered up, its engines roaring to life as they prepared for what was to come. The Empire might have fallen, but the galaxy was vast, and there were other forces at play. Humanity had proven its strength, its resolve, and its refusal to back down. But the true test was still ahead. Kira smiled as she watched the stars stretch out before her, the universe now wide open. "Let's show them what happens when you push humanity too far." The Relentless surged into the stars, its course unyielding. Whatever threats lay ahead, whatever powers were still out there, humanity had learned one crucial lesson, that they were never meant to be underestimated. And now, with a galaxy full of challenges ahead, humanity would rise to meet them, no matter what. And they would do it on their terms.